Yes.
Bam. All right, Dave Winslow, I got the recording on. I'm ready to go, sir. Um, Hi, everyone. Welcome to Regeneration, Regenerative Iteration. Today, we have Rachel Zant, a long time nonprofit fundraising champion who's helped with the copywriting side on helping getting nonprofits in those missions that we love, helping to get them funded. She's seen a history of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And today is just a way to help share some of that and what we're seeing emerging today. As always, if y'all have questions, throw them into chat and I'll weave those in if we can. Other than that, let's get this kicked off. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on today. I'd love if we can, could you just sort of maybe give us like a 5 or 10 minute sort of catch up on who you are, how you show up, and how you work to support others and their mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super happy and excited that you invited me. And this whole world is a little new to me on your side of things, the regenerative side. So it's kind of cool to hear how you guys are speaking about the work that you're doing. And I think that's sort of what really prompted us initially deciding we should talk. So we'll get into that in a minute. But I've been working for 25 years writing and creating fundraising direct response materials for nonprofit organizations. So that's running like direct mail campaigns, direct email campaigns to really help nonprofits bring in multiple gifts from donors who are giving in that lower dollar range, like your everyday humans, not your foundations or your, Bill Gates or those really uber rich, but really you and me and everyone like us who just wants to give whatever they can, like 50 or $100 to support causes that make the world a better place. So I started with an English degree and didn't know what I wanted to do. And I looked for a job that had writing in it and managed to just sort of fall into this world of fundraising, working for a fundraising marketing agency who was doing work with David Suzuki Foundation and Make-A-Wish Foundation and some hospital foundations, and just learned on the job how to write in a way that inspires people to give from their heart and from their paychecks to support important causes like all around the world. Um, and that's kind of where I started. And then from there, I went on to do just direct writing for agencies, big agencies running all kinds of campaigns in the US and Ireland and Australia. And then basically after that, I went back and I worked for the BC SPCA for a while. I don't know if you've heard of the SPCA, but Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. I learned even more about how to do like digital fundraising and web copy and landing page and social media and how to inspire people to give in that way. And all of that is really combined to help me now just work directly with nonprofits. Kind of medium-sized nonprofits, some smaller, to really help develop communications plans that help you talk to your donors and stay in touch with your donors, and inspire more giving from your donors. But that's really what I'm all about. My company is called Pen with a Purpose, and everything that I write has a real targeted purpose, and reason for going out there into the world. And usually it's to inspire someone to act, to make a gift or to take an action. And there is a real art and a science to that kind of writing.
Thank you so
Does
much,
that
Rachel.
help?
Yeah, that was wonderful. That was great. Um,
Amazing.
Guys, we're going to jump into the questions. So in chat, there's a link that says speaker sheet, and you can see the Google sheet in there. You're welcome to follow along, but you don't need to. But those are the questions we're going to be asking. As always, guys, if you have additional questions that you have, throw them into chat, and I'll weave those in here. I see someone doing a copy paste of the whole thing. All right, get that AI working on there. That's great. All right, Rachel, let's jump in right away then. So origins and lineage. So you've spent 25 years inside nonprofit fundraising. Walk us back to the moment direct mail and direct response, that craft clicked for you. Not the technique, but the why.
Mhm. The thing I love about direct response really is it's like it is a science. You can track it. You can see what's working. You can see what's not. It's very finite. Like when I used to work in the direct mail fundraising agency, you could test just one little thing changed on a reply form and see if that increased response. So you can really get some valuable feedback on what's working. And now with email, it's even better. You can see, the subject lines, which one works better, or, if you add photos in or don't add photos in. So for me, getting that tangible feedback, but also just, I think for me, I had an English degree. I was used to writing in these ways that were sort of academic, and then coming into this industry where you had to be clear and you had to make your words count and that you had to move people to take action from the heart. And when you did, people would give passionately, and that helps make the world a better place. So I just love that part of it. I'm not trying to persuade people to buy something. I'm writing to persuade people to take action and to feel moved in their heart to support and make, help people get better, or, in most of your cases, it would be to help make the world literally a better place to live. So for me, that's my big why. Doing
Thank,
something that matters.
thank you so much.
hmm
The next question. So you mentioned that clarity is kindness. What does that mean for you when you're staring at a blank donor letter? How do you translate that?
Well, for me, a lot of times someone will come to me and say, we need to raise a bunch of money for this, or we have an appeal coming up. And for me, it starts with the why. Why are you sending this out? What are you trying to achieve? I usually have a conversation and I try to pull out exactly what they're going to be using the money for example. But even like the conversation that we had, if I don't understand what it is that you're saying to me, then I cannot convince somebody else to give. If somebody is confused, it's a barrier. As soon as you're talking in your own organizational language or jargon, or you don't even really know what it is you're asking for, then it creates confusion and a barrier. So my biggest goal is to get super clear in my brain so I can explain to other people how they can act and what their gift is going to do to make a difference for whatever it is, depending what organizations I'm writing for. It could be, give to help bring in new equipment for a hospital, or but even more than that, it's not about the equipment. It's about helping a family to have somebody get better and come home again, right? So getting down to the real core of what is actually important and what really matters in the work that all of you are doing. For me, that's the clarity. Because just saying, like, I didn't even know what regenerative was, as an example, right? So trying to distill that down to somebody who can really understand what that means at the core sense, right? Like your grandchildren are going to be able to still walk the earth or breathe fresh air or have a, swim in clean water or eat good food, like healthy food. So that's sort of what it means to me is whatever you can do to make what you're saying clear, you're going to connect better with the people that you're writing to or talking to.
Love it. Thank you so much.
hmm
I'm going to ask this next question. I'm going to weave in Rick's question in chat too, as well.
Okay.
So when a donor reads a paragraph in 30 seconds, what's the work that's behind that paragraph that nobody sees? And can you share some successful stories, around crafting that and what it meant for the others, in the sort of like this better way?
hmm well, a huge core of the writing that I do now is I will do personal interviews with people to really pull their story out in their own words. So, there's a good there's a lot of lead up to something that comes out in a paragraph, right? Like knowing what questions to ask, knowing how to create an empathetic, inviting environment so someone's willing to even share their story in a personal and vulnerable way. And then being able to pull out that content into a short paragraph when sometimes it's an hour-long interview. Sometimes when I'm writing an email or direct mail, I really do only have a paragraph or two to share that story. So figuring out what is the most compelling, most connecting content to use that's also going to inspire someone to act was really hard to distill down into a, 5-minute question. But I always feel it because for me, people act based on feelings, how they're feeling first versus their brain. It's the heart. So I try to connect in with the heart. I try to see where I feel most connected to somebody's story, and then I usually share that part of the story. When you're talking to somebody, you just feel that closeness and connection where you're like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Usually, if I can feel that, there's like something core in there that is like a universal truth that I can share with the donors and the people who are reading the letter. And that moment of connection, that aha, is what makes people usually act. I'll just side note, there's been a bunch of research on giving and donors' motivations for giving. There's something called the Philanthropy Institute. I'm going to get it wrong. The Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy. And they've done a lot of research on this. And there's basically like, 9 core motivations based on the research and, compassion, caring, loyalty, hardworking. I can't remember them all on the
That was
spot here,
awesome off the
but
top of mine,
but
though.
check
That
it
was
out,
really
right?
good.
So making sure you're tugging on those words and those things because people are giving not necessarily just to help you, but to feel a certain way. So when I'm giving, I feel good about myself through the act of giving. So if you can tug on that in the copy that you're writing and help the other person that you're writing to feel that they're a good person by making the act of giving, then you're miles ahead of most other people who just sort of talk at the people that they're talking to and tell them all about, them.
And what's one example where maybe you fixed poor copywriting to better copywriting and you saw just it's a massive difference? Do you have one that maybe you reference top of mind that you sort of share with others?
Um, I don't know how, I mean, I have lots just because, I do have one example. There's a organization in the US, I'm in Canada, working with trafficked youth and mostly young girls. And they sent me a program description, a paragraph that just sort of said, this is what we want to open a new office to help these young girls and help liaise between the police and these young girls to help them trust. And it was just sort of a paragraph that didn't really have any feeling. And I talked to the program manager because I was like, I need something else. I need a story. I need some understanding of what the impact is. And she told me a story in an hour that just completely illustrated the importance. And I don't want to like traumatize or anything, but there was a young girl who came into this woman's office and her eyes were dead and lifeless. She just sat in the chair and she just had no life in her eyes. And through the course of working with this woman and helping earn some trust so that she could talk about what had happened to her, where her own parents had been trafficking her, um, within a couple of years, she talked about seeing a photo of her at graduation, and her eyes were full of life and her eyes were full of hope, and she had a whole future ahead of her. So that story tells the kernel of what we were trying to ask people to give for to create a new office. But that little paragraph, boring paragraph from the program people was not going to do it. But that story, which we fleshed out into an entire direct mail appeal and email appeal that told the story of impact from one girl, being no life to life. So yeah, beautiful. Just one example.
You that's wonderful. Um, say more about what dignity means in donor cultivation and what changes when charity treats its smallest givers as people and not line items.
All these questions are so big.
Sorry.
No, it's great. We can do entire like workshop sessions just on one. But for me, the dignity piece, I could probably tie it back to that story as an example. There's a lot in the fundraising world talking about people who take advantage of stories and maybe really sensationalize that story of the young girl and really go into all the horrific things she had to endure and really focus on that versus that full circle of how she ended up and the positive side and the way she's living now and her whole story versus just a one small piece of the story, and the sensationalizing of that negative side of the story, I guess for me is I really like to focus on a whole story of change, and empowerment, I guess. And the dignity piece with the smaller donors is, and that's my whole life's work is a lot of nonprofits put a lot of focus on those higher value donors and the rich donor or the people who they're trying to get the big gifts from and don't spend a lot of time and energy communicating with love and compassion to everyone who gives to you, not realizing that some people who have a lot of capacity test out organizations by giving a small amount, like $100 gift, and how you treat them, how you thank them. Do you thank them? Do you communicate with them? Let them know what you're doing with their gift. That can help them decide whether they're going to give you a bigger gift or not. So to me, treating everybody with care and compassion and the same, maybe not the exact same level of communication, but a lot of people don't even thank their donors, right? Don't even have, more than an auto receipt coming out. So being able to think about that and treat the people who care enough to make a gift to your organization with the same kind of compassion and respect that you would treat a friend, and that you would communicate with them and you wouldn't just keep coming back to them and asking them for money. You would be like, wow, thank you so much. Here's what I did with your gift. And wow, that really made, my life so much better before going back and being like, hey, could you give again? So thinking about it in that way, just reframing how we think about donors. And in the fundraising field, there's like segmentation and siloing, and certain people are responsible for certain types of donors when you get into the bigger nonprofit organizations. And that siloing can really hurt some of the donor relationships. And I think starting to think a little more of them as people rather than just numbers in a database is really important.
You're saying telling these stories like in full circle, that's where the smaller donors feel more included, right? Because it resonates with them a lot better. Is that correct?
Yeah, and making sure that you're communicating regularly. Yeah, and absolutely. The ethical side of things is telling is just not sensational. Oop, not sensationalizing. Stories would be the ethical part of thing, right? Like telling a full rounded story can really help someone to understand the impact that their gift makes because somebody can move from one spot, one way of being to another. Or it's the same in nature, right? Like what's the impact of your gift?
When
Um,
you're writing, how do you think about the stories of fear, loss, anger versus something else? Like which of those are easy or which ones are more effective? Do you think of it like that, or do you like how do you discern which type of stories to even tell when you have a plethora of stories you could tell?
mhm. Well, again, it comes back to the purpose usually. So if we're trying to raise money, it's often like, what is needed now to be able to create that impact and what story can illustrate the need, if possible. For me, that's the ideal. So if we need to raise some money for a piece of hospital equipment, then a story of someone who was helped by that piece of hospital equipment. Um, I'm trying to think of like nature examples, but I mean, I think of a colleague of mine. I'll see if I can find the blog post he wrote about it. But like during COVID, they were raising money for a camp. Actually, I guess there's a camp in nature, but they're raising money for a camp that had to close. So how do you raise money for something when you're not actually even doing the thing right now?
Yeah.
So showing what they were doing, and then also they got creative and they kind of created some animals who were still at the camp that was out in nature, and the animals were doing the things that the kids would have been doing and keeping the camp safe so the kids with cancer could come back out and do that. So getting like thinking outside of the box, creative as well is another way to do that. But story wise, it really comes back to having something that ties into what you're asking for the work that I do. So I don't want to tell a story about one thing that has nothing to do with what I'm actually asking money for. Like a story by itself is not going to inspire someone to give. It has to tie with what you're asking for. So you have to get clear also on what you need and what you need to ask for in order to then find a story that ties into it. Does that
Okay, one
help?
more from chat, and then I'm going to go back into our speaker sheet. So
Okay, no problem.
Dr. Brian's got one in here saying they email personalized response to all donors and
Yay.
include them in newsletters if they don't opt out. What does that meet the minimum, and how much would things improve if we put more energy into even just that?
Well, what I would suggest is like, without seeing the newsletter, is the newsletter telling the donors what their gift is doing and how they are helping, or is the newsletter just telling them more about you, right? So that's one thing. Like, connecting the donor's gift or the act of what they're doing to the things you're sharing in the newsletter, right? Like continually, it's like this friendship, right? You don't just constantly tell your friend that comes over for coffee all about you. You could ask them, like, hey, what are some things you want to hear more about? Like anything that shows you care about this reciprocal relationship, I think is important, right? Not just you're another person on my list that I'm sending stuff to and hoping that maybe you might respond, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, bare minimum, yeah, but how could you think about cultivating and creating more of a relationship with the people that you're communicating with?
That was a great
Um,
answer.
I think
That
one of
was
the
a great
challenges,
answer.
yeah, and one of the challenges is actually having more connection with the donor. That's oftentimes hard. You just have an email address and a name, and it's like, who are these people?
So you could ask, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, a little mini survey, but not like a 20-page survey, but like a
Oh,
two-question
sure.
survey. Why did you give? I mean, the best question is what inspired you to give in the
Wow.
first
Okay,
place,
that's
right?
huge.
I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mean, wow.
That one question needs to be a takeaway for probably every single person on here. What inspired you to give?
Right?
That's
Anything you
massive,
can
and
do.
we don't think to query like, hey, and my whole thing of what I just wrote, what was it about that that really inspired you, other than just guess, which I think a lot of times is what we do, right, or what we have to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
That's
So
huge.
All right, so
ask.
let me get back into these questions here because otherwise we're not going to get through them. So you named a gap. You said we were talking about nonprofits who say, well, actually, we didn't name the gap yet, but we know there's a gap there where there's nonprofits who feel like they don't have enough stories.
Mhm.
What does that really mean when they say that, and what do you do about it to turn it back on them to help them sort of figure this out?
Mhm. Well, it all comes back, I think, a bit to curiosity, but Jen often, so we'll get things like, oh, it's so easy for kids, hospitals, animals, right? But nature, like, or, scientific type organizations, like, where's the story? And I touched on it just a little bit, but again, it's what's that end result? What is the impact that you're trying to achieve? Or what made you start this organization in the first place? We'll often say, like, like a legacy story, like for getting someone to make a gift in their will is going back to a couple hours before you first started your nonprofit or your organization. Like, what was the impulse that inspired you to start that? That's the core feeling or emotion or something that impelled you to act. And how can you tug on that and tell that story? And what are some feeders into that story? I'll just another example, like I wrote a case for support for a railway museum last year, and I don't know anything about railways. I'm not a trained person. So I said, can I talk to 10 different people connected with your organization and ask them what they think is most important about this organization and what it, and so I talked to some donors, some people who worked there, some board members and big donors and little donors and volunteers and that sort of thing to get all the different perspectives from different people of why they support or what they think is important about the organization. And I mean, stories are endless. We all tell stories to connect. So what's
Okay,
your story?
let me flip that. Let me flip that because we have people in this room, such as
Yeah.
myself even, who are trying to build something that maybe is a complicated story. When we look at regeneration, it's not easy to communicate in a lot of ways. Even the word or the act of, hey, I'm trying to build something that can help with the act of this. And some
Mhm.
of our stories are really complicated, meaning I need to build something that's fully expressed out. How do you help that founder or that nonprofit who is telling the too complicated story? How do you help them be able to actually resonate with the people that they're trying to communicate with?
Mhm. I I mean, I would just start asking questions and getting curious for myself. If you can explain it to me in a way that I understand it, then I can probably explain it to people in the way that they understand it. But if you can break it down to, we hear this, oh, our work is so complicated, but the work is complicated, but what you're trying to achieve is not. So it's that focusing on the end goal. Like I heard someone earlier say something that I didn't understand. Then he said working on water or clean water, right? And so it's like regenerative as a word is like I get what it means as a concept, but also how can you simplify? Like how can you simplify the language? And that's what my craft has been for 25 years. Like direct mail and email, you have such a short time to get people's attention. So how can you simplify it? We need to write to like a grade. How would you explain it to a grade five? How would you explain it to someone, who's 10 or 12 years old? And then be like, oh, we can't speak to people that way. It's, we're speaking down to them, but you're not. It's back to that clarity is kindness. If you can speak to someone in a way that they really understand what you're trying to say, you're going to connect with them and be able to explain what you want them to do or how they can help you a lot better. So figuring out how to break it down, if you were talking to like your kid, or how would you explain it? What words would you use? And those are the words that you need to use.
When within careful because the way the question's written right here is a little bit of a deep conversation, and I'm trying to make sure we can consume this in the easier way.
Okay.
Yes, it's a RIT question, and those in the room understand it. So, um, within GRC, we are also considering launching our own projects that we could get funded on little prototype levels or the way we can do those kind of things. And a relationship where as a community or a group, we've never even done that before in a lot of ways. We never reached out and say, hey, we're going to change this slightly and we can do this. When
Mhm.
when a group is changing or molting how they do today and how they operate, and to start asking for donors, that can be very jarring to those people, and it could be a very cool opportunity. So what I'm asking then is when a group such as this wants to start launching programs where we can get donors, what are in a light way, this is a hard question, but what would be some of the right ways to sort of change that mindset to get people understanding of that? And what are some of maybe the traps that we should look out for?
Do you mean your group's mindset or the people who are supporting you, their mindset?
I think what would end up happening is the GRC group as a whole would say, hey, we want to prototype something and we need to reach out to all of our GRC members that have never been donators. They're just kind of sitters in the same energy, but we're going to ask possibly, this is just theoretical, to say, hey, can we change our relationship possibly? And would you want to invest in something we're working on? Does that help?
There, you just said it. You
Oh,
just said it, literally. Like, that's the thing. We just want to overcomplicate it.
all right.
But that's all that you would do, right? I mean, how would you talk to a friend? I think that's part of it is we truly try to overcomplicate things. But that right there, to me, seems like a very rational, kind way of saying it. You could explain a little more, but honestly, hey, we're thinking about trying something new, and you guys have been with us on this journey so far. So grateful. And are you with us? Like, this is why we're doing it. This is going to make things even better. It's going to make our work more effective, and we really, really want you to be a part of it. Because
You're
you
right.
guys are awesome and you've been with us all this way, and we really want you to stay with us. That seems like these are all human beings, first and
Yeah.
foremost, right? So, like you guys,
You're right
I
on
see,
multiple fronts here. This is
yeah.
good. Yeah.
And it's
It's
not just
principle.
you, like every nonprofit I've ever worked with, is they get stuck in their own little sphere and microcosm of we talk about things like this and we do things like this and then we overbrand everything and you can't say things like this and you have to say it like this. But if you can get it down to the core, easy, clear, basic message, it's not that complicated.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you just described like in real time us even overcomplicating something that we didn't need to. And so I can really appreciate that because I fall into that trap myself quite
Yeah.
a bit. So
Well, and that's why it's really helpful when someone like nonprofits hire someone like me to gather the stories. And that's one of the things I do is like I will come in and help you gather some stories because yeah, you just they get in their own way, right? Or they overcomplicate. And when someone who doesn't understand the kind of silos and all the overcomplications and just comes and asks some questions and understands it from an outsider's perspective, it really helps to to explain things a little bit easier.
I love it. I love it. So what are the easy tells that a nonprofit isn't actually meeting its donors where they are?
Um, well, one really easy one is that they're just not giving. So you have a lot of like some of the organizations I work with have lots of donors, right? So they've got like thousands and thousands of people on their file, and lots of only some of them are giving regularly. So why have these people stopped giving to you? And usually the answer is you have not been thanking them, you've not been informing them, you've just been asking and doing nothing else. So for me, I think that's a the biggest one is they're not giving, they're not responding, they're not opening things, and they don't
Yeah.
feel
Well, let's
passionate
talk about
anymore.
you said not giving and not opening things. That's actually really big. What happens when you do have an audience that maybe isn't used to opening things? How do you cut through the noise of an inbox or whatever on those lines to actually get people to notice this new well-crafted message? Or is that a trial and error in its own regard?
It's trial and error, but usually it's looking at what's been going out in the past and doing something vastly different to get their attention and to encourage them to open and to respond. So, for instance, the people who are just sending the email blasts, like the newsletter, say that's just kind of long and sorry, boring, and changing it so there's links that you can click and read the rest of it online, or things that encourage some kind of engagement and showing that people are actually at least looking at it. So now they, okay, because open rates are sort of, misleading. So are people actually clicking? Changing up your subject lines are big ones, right? Like something that they wouldn't expect. There's lots of ways to go about it, but that would be my first step would be seeing what is there? Like, who is there? Who is actually? And then at that point, you just actually need to cut away some of the people that are not opening and are not responding because that increases your deliverability. Switching up your medium. If you're always sending email, try to see if people will give you their mail address. Try to do some mail. Try to do things that are a bit different because people do get bored when things are always the same. So
Thank you
get
so much.
creative. Yeah.
Speaking of which, there's things like office hours and non-traditional, you know, chances to connect. And I'm just wondering, changing the
Hmm.
medium seems interesting.
Absolutely. That one of the really successful things we do with some nonprofits, especially for their higher level donors, is put in a Zoom invite where you'll sit for a half an hour and answer any questions. And sometimes just the act of inviting people to that, a lot of people won't actually come, but they'll give because they feel special for being invited, right? Like anything that you can do to make people feel special and appreciated is important. Segment your list and show that you know. The other thing is show me that you know me with
Mhm.
donors and people, so you know that this person came in from this re for this reason. Have a little line that actually acknowledges them, right? So anything you can do to show this isn't just a blast, but it's actually a little more personal. Yeah.
Does Patreon work well with nonprofits?
Pardon me?
Patreon and similar sites?
I don't know much about Patreon. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Guys, if we can, Sean, if you can put your question in chat, if you don't mind, you can come off and mute this time though. Please go ahead, Sean. But going forward, let's throw it in chat, please.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I didn't know. I saw the people coming off chat or mute there before, so I just didn't know. My
Yeah, no worries.
apologies. Do you ever notice anything, Rachel? Great to have you. It's awesome to learn
Thank
more.
you.
Thank you, Sage, for being the hero of the interconnectivity, the mycelium. I I guess my question is, do you ever find it to be beneficial to allow for people who are donating to something to actually be able to see, touch, and feel the thing that they're donating to? So, like, in other words, I've noticed that I just don't know this how this translates for different groups, but like I hear what you're saying about sharing in this case a success story. Do you ever notice a situation where maybe people who are donating want to actually talk to the human beings that are being impacted in this or like what does that look like? Do you see like a lowering of that barrier? Is there a barrier? Kind of what's your experience been with that?
That's also another big question. I don't think people generally want to talk to, like, say I'm writing about a patient. People are not going to be like, oh, can I talk to that patient, for instance? I don't, there'd be some ethical and, privacy boundaries in there. As far as having I mean, lots of nonprofits invite donors in to tour their facilities, to see the hospital, to see the shelter. So if you're asking someone to donate to a thing and you can have them come see the thing or do a Zoom or something where they see the thing, absolutely, right? Anything you can do to show impact and show the full circle of what they've given is huge. I mean, that's going to build trust more than anything. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Um, Next question here. Your work across the US-Canada border. What does Vancouver and Columbia's nonprofit fundraising see that the US-based fundraising does not? Or is the real answer that donors are donors everywhere?
Donors are donors everywhere. I mean, different countries do fundraising a little bit different. Like in the US, there does seem to be a little more leaning in still to only telling the need part of the story and not sharing the full story. And that does seem for some groups to actually get more people to give. But then you have to take that full circle of that sharing the other side of the story when you communicate with them in a thank you letter or something like that. But like in Canada, we usually share like help help people like so and so, and then we share their full story, like they had this horrible accident and they were saved and now they're doing great, and you can help other people like them. Whereas in the US it's often like, so and so has had a horrible accident, give now to help them, get better. And a lot of there's some ethical boundaries in there, I personally feel. Um, but generally, people are people and donors are donors, and there are just subtleties in the way. I think the US has a lot of potential to be sharing more in appeals and in mail packs and things like that. So trying to connect more with people and build more relationships versus it just feeling really transactional.
Thank you, thank you. Um,
Hmm.
Donor cultivation has survived a lot over 25 years. Direct mail is in decline, but then all of a sudden it shot up again because people just stopped using it. And it sort of is like it's had these ebb and flows. Email saturation, the social media siphon to now it's let's start a podcast and we'll get people on podcasts to then it was I forget where you get up on stage and people are getting on stage and doing all these things. Like what's the craft that survives all of them? Because none of us have enough time to keep up with all of these things.
Mm-mm. I'm going to keep coming back to whatever makes people feel like you actually care about them and you're connecting with them in a way that's meaningful to them. So, I mean, I think whatever that is for you and whatever is easiest for you to do in a meaningful way is the way that you do it, right? So I will like social media posts are not likely going to be that. So if you can only focus on one thing, I mean, really well crafted emails that really connect, trying to put a few mail pieces out there. I mean, that's gonna make, because again, people don't get it anymore. So even a handwritten card is like, wow, this is out of the box. Amazing that someone has taken the time to send me a card. There's systems you can use that will send handwritten cards for you. So there's things like that. So for me, I don't know. I mean, I'm also a Gen X, so I'm not, I know the younger generations are starting to come back to wow, mail again. But I know there is a lot of stuff out there. But whatever it is that you're doing, I think just making sure you're being clear and you know what your purpose is and what you're writing and what you're putting out there, that's going to really help you.
For those who of us like in this room that are part of sort of like third horizon groups like GRC or others that are really trying to help come together and give peer support and through all of these kind of things. Um, when you're limited in what you can do, but you already have some of these groups accessible to you, what do you feel would be the best first steps or approaches and sequence of actions to help maybe sort of use those groups to help find your own tribe and then help finding donators through those? What do you feel are good sort of practices here?
Wow, that's a good question. I think for me, it's always just going to come back to knowing what your core ask is. What are you asking for, right? Like, what do you need in this moment, and what is what goal are you working towards? And that's going to be the ultimate sort of way to help you know what to ask for and who to ask for it from. I can't really. I'm not really sure quite how to answer the rest of that question,
That's
I'm
fine.
afraid.
No, that's still a great answer. Um, Adam, you got a complicated one here. Can you come off and ask this just so I do this one justice, just because it's a little bit of a two-parter? If you're there, Adam?
Sorry, yeah, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes, sir. Go
driving
ahead.
around. Hang on one second. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Oh, great, great. No, thank you for this. And I don't, how do you say it? I guess that my question, if you're new to the regenerative space, and one of the things in the regenerative space we talk about is extractive economies and how this model is definitely part of the existing extractive system. One would be a question of how can we do this in a less extractive way, and two, if if the purpose of an institution is to make an institution, and that's always a problem from your perspective, are there best practices within the institutions you've worked with that make it less about the institution and more on the mission? I don't know if that.
Mhm. I think I understand. Again, you used a lot of big words there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of institutions and nonprofits, right? I mean, it is a thing. They exist to keep existing, right? If that's what I think you're saying, right? Is there's not a lot of incentive for, I mean, ultimately a nonprofit should want to do something so it doesn't need to exist anymore, right? But instead they keep existing because they are institutions. But I will just keep coming back to the end result of what you want to do, right? Like what is the end goal? And focusing on the people who are giving to you and what like the I always like to say that nonprofits need to talk about themselves as just a medium between the donor's gift and the outcome that they're trying to achieve, right? That's not really about the nonprofit. It's about them being a tool for the donors and the people who are giving to actually achieve the thing that is the end result. So and the power is in the donor's hands, not in the nonprofit's hands. Like you're not giving to this hospital, you're giving to help patients live healthy, happy lives with their
Go
families, right?
back to that story, right?
Exactly. So trying to do in whatever you write, like take yourself or take your institution right out of it when you're communicating and that you're just a tool is kind
Well,
of the way I try to approach that.
sorry. Thank you. Um, what about incentives to reach a wider audience? Are there out of the box incentives that have been proven to work well with diverse audiences?
I don't know what you mean about incentive. I talk about it like lead gens. So if you have something that someone might be interested in, learning more about, or you have some kind of information or tips, you can get people to put themselves on your list by you sending them that information is one tactic to help build a list up, if that's what you mean, but I'm not sure otherwise, like if that's
Rick, can give
answering
you a
your
follow-on
question.
question if you want on that one, and I'll circle back to you if you want. So let me move on here because, guys, we're at our last 10 minutes here. So, Rachel, we're going to do a little bit of quick fire and some questions,
Sounds
and
good.
hopefully get through a little bit more of these. Dr. Brian, I'll definitely weave you in. Just give me one moment here. So,
And I'm okay, sorry, and I'm okay if people want to shoot me a note on LinkedIn or send me an email or
Yeah,
something,
this was
and
just
I
directly related to our
sorry.
last response, and that is that Patreon lets you do staged benefits, and if you do a Zoom call for higher level, people will sometimes elevate their donations.
Okay, yes, right, I've got you there.
Thanks.
thank you. Um, all right. Let me finish here. Just so. Um, The nonprofit storytelling, the nonprofit storytelling conference in Tuscan is showing up. What's the one thing you wish the room would actually talk about?
Um, all right. Well, what I'm talking about is kind of deep. Well, one thing I'm talking about is actually print newsletters and how you can make them raise money. So that's one thing. But the other thing that I really want people to talk about is all of this work, storytelling. We talk a lot about stories, how to gather great stories. I talk about how to do good interviews to gather stories. But in the end, it does all come back to you. Like, so my session is the story starts with you because as we see, we get in our own heads. We become the barrier to a lot of the work that and communication that we're doing, and it needs to come back to looking within and being comfortable with your own self and your own feelings. Because when you are more comfortable with your own feelings and the things that you're doing, it's easier for you to connect with the people that you're talking to and the stories that you're trying to tell. So that's my big message these
Next,
days.
that's right. Next question. We're moving on here. Okay. Have you seen interesting contributions or things other than money, other resources, people that can contribute?
Not in the work that I do so much. I mean, people will donate, like volunteer their time or donate things, but yeah, it's not really something that's in my wheelhouse. Sorry.
If you could whisper one thing to your first year of fundraising self, or whisper one thing to those nonprofits that are just starting to think about fundraising, what would be the one thing that you would whisper?
Trust yourself.
I love it. That's wise. That's not what I thought you were going to say either. That's great. What's
Wait,
what's
I
the
missed
one
the
question
answer.
that I
What was
should?
the answer?
I'm sorry.
What was the answer? It was too short.
Trust yourself.
Hmm.
That's what
Thank you.
came to me.
I love it. What's the one question I should be asking, but maybe I'm not a smart enough person to ask today?
Oh, well, that's not very kind to yourself, but
Realistic.
I think like I actually don't have a quick, easy answer to that. I think ask yourself why, like what, I guess back to purpose. Like what is it that you guys are trying to achieve and how can you make it as simple as possible? Like I think that's part of it is trying not to be as smart as you are. How can I
Trying
be
not to be as smart
less
as you are. I
smart?
love that. And it goes back to the self-blocking because a lot of times we are the ones that are blocking ourselves from that connection, right? Okay. Um, how might we stay connected and follow your journey? For all these people in the room are just saying Rachel's amazing, and I want to follow on, see Rachel, and continue to talk to you. What do you want us to do? Like follow you on LinkedIn?
Sure, yeah. I also have a list. Let me see if I can just, I'll just put my link. I've got some freebies on my website too. Feel free to grab those. I got my own email list, which hilariously, like the shoemaker's kids, I am slightly sporadic about sending out, but I usually send, a couple times a month. Sometimes it's more than that. Join me on LinkedIn as well. I try to put stuff out on there or shoot me an email or whatever. Yeah, I'm happy to connect in whatever way.
I love it. If you were to replicate what you do or scale this, or if you were to say, hey, if I can clone myself and start doing other good work in this area, what would you do? What would be the next thing you would reach out to, or what would be the way that you would really want to, if you had to start fresh, really make a better impact, or what you do?
My big passion right now is the helping gather stories and do exactly this, like talk with you and help you hone your story into an easily expressible kind of nugget or nuggets. So I really like that. I really like talking with people and just trying to figure out their why or their story. So I'm working with a lot of groups right now to just sort of help gather more stories. I've got another website called storygardening.com, which you can check out. That's kind of talks a little bit about that offering, but yeah, that's my big one right now is story gathering.
Guys, both of those links are on the speaker sheet. So if anything else, open up the speaker sheet and you'll have all three of those links in there. So you
Oh,
can do that
awesome.
later.
Okay.
I did put those in there for you guys. And when we publish this as well, we'll have a link back to the speaker sheet so you guys can see this when it's on YouTube. My last question of the day, guys. As there are other struggles that you, Rachel, may also be facing that the people in this room in GRC may be able to help you with, what could some of those struggles be and how could we possibly give back to you?
hmm well, I always love hearing more about kind of new cool things that are happening out in the world. So I love hearing if you guys are, I'd love to hear more about anybody doing things that would be really impactful on the environment I mean, I don't even kind of know what I don't know. So, yeah,
Would you
I'm
be interested
always,
in joining GRC? It's a free membership, and you can just sort of you can pop into these as you may like.
I certainly could. I know this particular call is in direct conflict with something I do every Wednesday, but I came here for you
Yeah.
guys. But yeah, absolutely. Shoot me more info. Love to hear.
Yeah, and I forgot to preface that. You guys, she has like this standing thing during this slot. It's very, very important for her, but she moved this around to make sure she could show up today. So, Rachel, that
Oh,
concludes my portion of the interview.
thank you.
Next week, guys, we're going to be interviewing our very own Dave Winsel, and we're going to have a GRC State of the Union discussion about where we are, where we've gone to this point, and where we want to go, and to get feedback from all of y'all on what you want to see out of GRC in the future as well. So next week's going to be an amazing discussion. The only thing I say that is because I have to get next week's plug in. But let's come back into Rachel. Guys, the floor is now open for Rachel. We can have open questions where you guys can come off of mute and ask directly. Rachel, before we do that, just thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate your time. We understand that the work that you do is very difficult and in a very saturated world. The ability to do your job successfully makes or breaks nonprofits, and we understand that pressure wholeheartedly. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and showing up today for all of us. And
Thank you
everyone
for having
else,
me.
the floor is all of yours. So please come off of mute. You can chat amongst yourselves. And Rachel has agreed to stay on for a few more minutes to chat with us.
Absolutely. Everyone's all chatty before, but
Yeah.
now,
I have a
no,
question.
it's done.
I do have a question. So, as you can see down the bottom, we have Green Sphere Gardens logo, and Green Sphere is a wonderful human being in Kenya who has done some amazing work over the last several years. Working with schools to create gardening that feeds the population, and all the teachers become part of a board, so it's not hierarchical, and there's
Mm,
2,000 kids involved. And so I popped in here a couple months ago, and I'm like, what do you do and who are you? And so GRC for the first time is looking at putting together this initiative that has been hinted at throughout this conversation for such a small amount. The guy can make money, right? We just need like 7 grand in startup costs, but we have never asked GRC the community. And so
mm,
important is it? Like the suggestion was, well, why don't you tell the story, Tally, as well as Frederick and his people on the ground? How important is it to hear from these core people that the whole GRC community knows, to actually say something that doesn't undermine the flat thing where they're not in charge, they're not telling people what to do, they're just there to hold space. So it's a very different organization than where you have a leader and followers, or the person in charge and then everyone else. And yeah, so that's it's any thoughts? Not a big question, just like off the top of your head.
I would totally welcome if you guys wanted to like have a chat after, and I could totally probably give you some good kind of feedback and guidelines on how you could broach that or write something that would undoubtedly help you to raise some funds for that. Because it's you just said it right there, like such a beautiful encapsulation of what it is and what it does and how important. You could easily share a few stories of people on the ground who are involved as part of it. But I do think if you're a trusted person, and Frederick, if you're a trusted kind of people within this community, sharing the message from you as a first point is a really good way to start. And then from there, usually it's not just one and done. Usually you need sort of a series of communications about something
Sure,
like
sure.
this.
We're just doing
But
a
yeah.
90-second video, which one of our members has agreed to help with, which is fantastic, right? And I'm putting
Mhm.
pressure on some of the administrators. I'm like, but you have to tell us, you have to tell your story. What do you mean by regeneration? What's the whole point of this? Why do we want a new template? Like, why is it important now to have these 1,500 members put put the values to practice, like, give $50 or whatever it is,
Yeah.
to bring this
Yeah.
initiative to life. So yeah, I
Exactly.
would
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. No, totally. Book. I have like, so if you go to my website, I've got some time you can book some stuff in or just shoot me an email and that'd be great. I'd love to.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You got some questions in chat as well if you want to
Oh,
look through there. Colleen asked a question. Colleen, you want to come off mute and chat?
Yeah,
Or
I'm just wondering, what is a customary and usual fee for a service that you provide?
it's a
Because
big
we don't want
range.
you to work for free.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to hear what it is you want. For instance, like if I write a series of emails for a nonprofit that they're going to send out to raise funds, it can be like $1,000 to do like a short email series. If I'm writing direct mail appeals that are going out to a number of donors, that could be anywhere from like $1,000 to $2,000 to write that. That just gives you a small idea. But I also do for some worthy causes. I have been known to reduce or, offer some. I can also do coaching, so feel free to kind of connect with me directly and I could give you a little more precise info on that, but that gives you a bit of a range.
That's good to know. I'm a director of a nonprofit called Rainbird Rising,
Okay.
and it's for rural revitalization. Um, and so what we're I had a person of influence from this from the Department of War, actually in the United States, contact me and
Okay.
ask me to apply for grants because they really liked what we are doing for rural communities. And
Wow.
a lot of their projects, they would like to headquarter them in rural communities because they
Hmm.
feel like they're safer there. And, and I'm like, oh, but here again, those grants cannot be used to purchase land. They're infrastructure grants. And so we have to have the money for the land before we can utilize the infrastructure
Right.
grants.
So many rules all the time. Interesting.
And
Okay.
land costs a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also looking for small donors because the
Hmm.
small donors help me get in the right rooms where
Totally.
I
And
can
you can
talk to
explain
people.
that. Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
can easily explain that problem right there to people and be like, we have this, but we need this. And, the more transparent you can be with people, the better. So, yeah, I'm happy
Right.
to chat with you. If you just shoot me a note, yeah, I'd be
Okay,
happy to. Yeah,
I just invited you to connect with me on LinkedIn.
awesome. That's great.
All
I'm
right.
happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Anyone want to come off of mute? Anything else? Wait a few more minutes. Rachel, thank you so much for today.
Thanks.
Hope you
Thanks. I really
enjoyed the
appreciate
interview.
it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
You guys are doing good work and appreciate all that you are doing, with your heart and soul and passion for making the world a better place. So I'm just here to help everybody out the best I can. So hopefully you got something out of it and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Lovely.
thanks a lot, Rachel.
It's fun. Thanks.
Thanks, Sage.
Bye.
everyone. All right, the recording will be up hopefully by Friday and next week, Mr. Winslow himself. So good to see you all, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for coming today. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.